Hi, it's Tony here again, and we're back with some 414 panels. So we've got a couple of different variants to show off in this video. There's the GNS 530 variant and the GTN 750 variant. So we're going to probably fly the GTN 750 variant. That's my preferred one that I tend to fly. I've set up a quick flight plan so we can have a quick flyover from where are we? We're down at the tip of Italy, and we're going to fly over to Malta very quickly. Should only take about 20-25 minutes. But we're going to have a quick look at the GNS panel quickly. So I've got them up here in front of me. We'll have a look at the left-hand side panel first. You'll see that the 751 is very similar to this, so we can skip over most of this, and we'll talk about that a little bit more on the way. But the difference is on this 530 panel are the autopilot that you see here, the autopilot control panel. Well, yes, I suppose it is the autopilot control panel, and then the autopilot mode selector, which is this panel here, and then the altitude selector, which is an analog style sort of thumb wheel type altitudes selector, which is pretty much the main differences on this left-hand side panel from the 750 variant. I think that's everything that I can think of. Yes, that looks pretty much like most of it. And we'll talk about the rest, I guess, when we're looking at the 750 panel, and we'll do a full power up and everything. And then on the right-hand side panel, we've got the engine gauges, which that's all part of the 750, the same thing. So the only difference is really the radio outfit on the 550. So it's mainly based around the 530. Let's get some power on here just quickly, and we can at least get some of these avionics powered up. I haven't got the right aircraft loaded here, so the 530 is not going to come up. But this is the 530 panel. So the weather radar there is just there as a placeholder at the moment. If weather radar is ever enabled on this aircraft, then hopefully I'll be able to get that working, but it's just there as a placeholder at the moment. You've got a second com for the com that's obviously in the 530, an ADF. There's your transponder. There's a nav GPS source select panel. There's your really old audio panel, and RNAV nav2. Now RNAV's not simulated in this particular aircraft, but the nav2 functions are. So yeah, you can enter the frequencies on the keypad here, and it's got a built-in DME display as well as obviously the DME display that's on the left-hand side panel. So we'll just go back and look at the left-hand side panel quickly, just so you can see what I'm talking about there. So the DME there, yeah, there's it sort of partially powered up, not even started the aircraft off that, but we'll have a little more detailed look at that when we're in the 750 variant. But just wanted to show you the pair of GNS 530 panels. I've done those and the 750 panels. So if you just bear with me a second, I'll swap over to the 750 variant. I think I've got them here. Where are we? There we go. And there we have the GTN 750 panels. You can see that the left-hand side panel is very much the same. It's just missing the autopilot control and the mode controller. It's got a radalt in there and a digital altitude encoder in that location, but other than that, it's pretty much the same. And then on the right-hand side panel, it's a little bit different. You haven't got the second com in the small little unit here, so it's just the ADF, because obviously there's a second com in the second GTN. So you've got a pair of GTNs. That's a notable difference. And then the new Garmin autopilot and Garmin transponder. which you've probably not seen before, either of these units, as you probably won't have. This particular set of panels has taken a lot of time, more so than probably any other panels that I've done to date. With the speed that I can do a panel at now, given that obviously when I first originally started with this, things used to take a lot of time because you're in that sort of steep part of the learning curve. But now I'm much more proficient at making these panels. Even this panel took a long time to do, so that just gives you an idea of how much work was involved in this. Each one of these instruments was pretty much had to be done from scratch. There was no sort of freebies on this one. There was ones that I'd done from other panels. Sometimes when you do panels, a lot of the instruments, if they're generic ones like Garmin or Bendix King type instruments, or generic ones that would have been used in other planes, but this, I must say, this aircraft was very unique in that respect, and so therefore pretty much every instrument had to be done from scratch, even if it was based on another one. It was either pretty much all of them were a redo of the graphics in some respect, and the code, or as I said, most of them were just completely start from scratch, and away we go. So yeah, that obviously took quite a bit of time. So let's get going, I guess, and we'll do a quick. Let's power down, and then we can do a quick proper, well, not proper, but a startup. So we're powered down at the moment. As I said, we're in Italy, just down on the tip. We'll have a look on the map, and there you can get an idea of where we are. So I've got these couple of little pop-ups here. I've got the compass on the thing in the usual place. You've seen that before, and you've also seen on the several of my other panels, fuel selector panel pop up. I guess eventually the plan is for these to either go in a central pedestal type display or an overhead display, depending on this particular aircraft. The fuel selectors are down in the floor, so it would probably go in a center pedestal, but a lot of the aircraft, or not a lot, but some of the aircraft have the fuel selectors in an overhead position, so they may go on an overhead monitor. But for the moment, with just the 2-monitor setup, I've made them so that you can choose whether or not that's a pop-up or not. So I've got it set as a little, I call it a pop-up. That's probably not the right term, considering we refer to the pop-outs in the sim as pop-outs. So this is more of a pop-up or a show hide, for want of better terminology. But yeah, just a little graphic there just to show you where the touch spot is, so that you can touch it and enable that thing. Otherwise, if it's not shown, then obviously all the instruments underneath you're able to control. So that just gives you a little bit more screen real estate in terms of being able to swap things out. You could do that with more instruments, whole panel, whatever you wanted to do really, but yeah, I choose to do it with the individual instruments. And if you wanted to show that permanently on, say, a tablet or another display in a center pedestal, you could do that quite easily just by turning off. There's a user property to enable or disable the little show hide capability, so it'll just become a fixed instrument, if you like. So while we're here, we might as well turn our fuel on. And then on the other side, which is where the other main pop-up is, in the left-hand corner, we've got our switch panel on the 414, which is sort of down by the side. Again, I could probably make this a fixed one if I needed to. I've got the crash bars here, animated. So all the switches as well are working, which took a whole heap of work to get working. It wasn't straightforward with this particular developer and aircraft, as were many of the instruments. The autopilot was a struggle for a while, and I got it all working with all the custom stuff, and then things got changed and it went to more standard events and variables within the sim, so I had to change it all again. So hence why it's taken quite a while to change. And I suppose that would be the same for any aircraft in the sim really. They do evolve over time, they do make changes, and that's just part of the territory really, in that from time to time you'll have to do some small updates to keep up to date with whatever changes they may or may not do. Some aircraft obviously change more than others, and sometimes it's a result of the sim changing and nothing that the aircraft developer specifically has done, but something that's changed in the sim that they've needed to make a change for, or that you need to make a change for in your air manager panels to keep it working, or to make it work in the new way. So let's get the power on then, get the battery on, let's get those alternators on quickly. So the good, I'll just show the crash bar animation. You can just touch the crash bar there and you can shuts all the power off instantly there, so that's quite nice. When you're coming to shut down, that's a useful little feature. We'll stick the anti-collision light on. We did switch our fuel on, didn't we? We'll have the mags on, and we will prime on the left engine. My mistake, left my mixtures down there. Does always help. Bit of an ad hoc throttle quadrant here at the moment, so bear with me. That's it, we got a nice start on the left engine. And same for the right engine. Right, we'll have a quick look at the fuel, just so that we can get the fuel computer keyed in right. So I think we'll set, we're not going very far, so I think 50% should be enough. So 50%. Okay, so I know that what you do with the fuel computer. Oh, we're remind myself how to use this thing now. So 206 is the total, so 103 is what we want. So it looks like we've already got on 103. So we haven't got, but you can enter, you can see you can enter the individual digits there of what fuel you're adding if you need to. We're already on 103. So I'm going to press enter because that's already there, but you could enter in the delta there, and there's a way of getting it back to 0 as well. So we've entered in 103 of what we've got as usable fuel, and then the function switch, once you're in this run mode, you're able to pounds remaining, time, some of those haven't got a lot in them at the moment, but they will do once we get going. Yeah, gallons used and whatnot, and there's a timer there as well. So I tend to leave it on I think I'll leave it on my remaining. You can see that there's no fuel flow until you get over a certain amount. So when you're really on low idle there, that the displays start flashing as they're about to go off when they get sort of below a certain value, and then when they get below another value even lower than that, they'll just switch off completely after about 10 seconds, I think it is. Yeah. So we'll get our avionics on now. See the autopilot goes through its self-test there. We'll get our transponder. We've got touch on these as well. So with the great Microsoft Flight Sim pop-out panel manager. It enables a mouse simulated touch until Microsoft and Asobo can get round to actually providing us with a feature that they should have provided from day one. But I've got on my soapbox about that enough, so we won't do that today. Just having a look. We're a fairly basic setup here, it looks like, in terms of the taxiways. So we have our auxiliary pumps to low. We're on anti-collision. We'll put our taxi light on there. We'll have our cabin fan on low. I don't think we're going to go very high here today, although we could show the pressurisation working. I suppose we could go up to maybe... Well, this thing will get up there quick, so why don't we go up to 12,000 and we can have to come back down again. It's a fairly short flight, this, but we'll make short annunciator test, making sure all the lights are working on both the panels. Yep, no annunciators left on the panel when that's released. Set our trim. Daylight here, so we don't really need any night lighting, but you can see here there's a switch here to enable the night lighting, and then each one of these is a slider dimmer on the night lighting panel. There you see you can adjust the night lighting on all the individual units, just as I've shown on some of my other panels before, so very nice. So we are set to pressurize. We'll have our cowl flaps open for the moment. We'll set one notch of flaps just to begin with, and I think we'll get ourselves underway. Let's take our parking brake off. And we'll taxi out. I'm not sure if you're getting all of these engine sounds here, but it's super. In fact, what I might do is just adjust those a little bit. Just bear with me a second. While we're at it, we'll get ourselves out from this little tight spot as well. So we might have to go over the grass here, so we keep that wingtip away from the building. Okay, so hopefully you're getting those sounds a little bit more there now. Difficult to know while you're actually recording what it's going to come out like, but this is probably one of the, well, I would probably say it's the best sounding aircraft. The Cessna 310 has got very good sounds on it as well, but this, for me, is the best sounding aircraft in the sim. I love the sound of the wind, the gear, but particularly the engines. Very, very nice sounds indeed. And a very small developer, relatively speaking. something some of the larger developers can learn a lesson or two from in terms of doing things right. Take your time and get it right. This is a tiddly little airfield, isn't it? Hope I've not gone too small here. Okay. I will just get them fuel pumps off because they are getting on my nerves. They've got quite a high-pitched ring to them. And while I'm videoing this, I can hear it coming through the headset, so let's go. This is going to be short. Oh, just about. Positive rate, gear up. And there is the Mediterranean Sea, which we're going to head out over on our way down to Malta. So now we've taken off of that short strip. I'm going to back the power off a little bit into the green. Bring those props back. To 25. Dialing our altitude. I should have done this really before. What did we say? 12,000 feet? 12,000 feet, there we are. And we'll put the autopilot on. There's a flight director comes in there on the primary flight display. And initially the autopilot will come on in roll and pitch. We can let go of the flight controls now. You can see it's got alts on the display as well, so that means that the target altitude of 12,000 feet is it will level off at that altitude. Alts is short for altitude select effectively, but we're going to also select nav mode now as well and make sure we're in GPS. Oops, there we go. It's seen the GPS line a little bit overshoot there, but it'll get back on course. We're zoomed in a little bit too much there on the number 1 GTN. And on the number 2 I think we'll come out quite a bit more, just so we get a better view of what we're doing here. So there you have it. I could leave it in pitch mode there, or I could go into indicated airspeed or VS mode if I wanted to carry on the climb, but we've set a reasonable pitch here from our initial climb out into the climb, and so we'll leave it in pitch mode and let it capture that altitude of 12,000 feet as we go. So we're already at 4,000 there, not climbing too aggressively here. In fact, probably what we will do is we will change to indicated airspeed mode. Bring our flaps up as well, which I forgot. You can see that, or you can probably hear that sound So this is a turbocharged aircraft, so no need to fiddle with a mixture, or not unless you're up and around the critical altitude of, which I think is 21,000 feet in this aircraft. So those turbos compressing and sucking all that air into the engine. Means that you get great performance out of this thing. We're climbing at about, well, let's just go up a little bit more. Bearing in mind I'm not even quite at 35 there, manifold pressure, like 34 and a bit. About 130 knots indicated, and we've still got well over 1,000 feet per minute climb. You can get better than that. So it gives us a chance while we're in the climb here, and once we start to level out, when we get to 12,000, to have a closer look at the panels. So if we start with, let's do it in reverse. Let's start with the right hand side panel, shall we? And have a look at what we've got here. So all the instruments across the top. We had a quick look at the fuel computer when I was entering in the fuel initially. You can see now that gallons fuel remaining figure is counting down slowly, and we've got our two fuel flows for the two individual engines on the two displays before there. So we're burning about 26 gallons an hour there. You can change that to pounds if you want to while we're in the climb, and we'll be able to get that down lower once we're in the cruise. And then just to the left of that, we've got the traditional 2-needle manifold pressure and 2-needle RPM gauge with a little prop sync indicator on the RPM gauge that you probably saw spinning when we first started the first engine there, but now we've got them both there nice and in sync. In fact, once we get in the cruise, we can turn on the prop sync. And then to the right of the fuel flow, or the fuel computer, are the other engine instrumentation gauges. So you've got your EGT there. The little indicators will move, so you can set your peak with the indicators on each side there if you need to. And then two free function gauges, one for the left engine, obviously the one on the left, and the one on the right for the right engine, and they're giving you all of your other engine parameters. So your oil pressure at the top, your oil temperature to the right, and your cylinder head temperature to the left. So as you can see, all of them sitting in the green there quite nicely, while we're continuing our climb, just coming up through 8,800 feet now. To the right of those are the fuel quantity gauges. So you can see they're just a little bit less than 50%, which would account for the fuel that we've used since we've taken off. So that's indicating correctly. And then below the fuel quantity indicator, there's a prop de-ice gauge. If I was to turn the prop de-ice on, which we don't need today, you'd see that needle would start indicating. So all of these instruments that I'm showing you, every single one of them is working here. There are no dummies that I can remember. No, I don't think there are. I think everything is actually working in terms of interacting with the sim in some way, shape or form. So then below the prop de-ice at the very bottom are all the sort of ancillary controls, either from the center pedestal or from the right hand side panel. So there's a Hobbs meter there. You can see that's 120 hours I've been flying the 414 from. Don't know how that compares with what you've flown in the 414, but quite a few hours there. a lot of those were development flying hours for these panels, but also had a great time as well too along the way. So we've got some cow flat levers there. Pull to close them, or push them into to open. They're quite aerodynamic ones on this particular airplane, so you don't lose too much actually having them open, quite sleek looking ones. So we've got a rudder trim there. We can adjust the rudder trim if we need to. The same with the aileron trim just to the left of that there. There's your flaps control and indicator just to the left of it there, so you can see we've got no flaps selected currently. And then the cabin heat and defrost controls. See, all these are Nobster enabled things. So that little beep was us being 1,000 feet away from our target altitude, just to let us know. So yes, we just come through 11,000 and we're just climbing up towards our 12,000 feet. So you can see, just having a look at the autopilot now. Here you can see we're on alts at the moment, and we're still on indicated airspeed mode while we're continuing this climb. But as we get within, I think 300 feet it should start transitioning over to altitude hold mode. So we'll just watch that for a minute before I finish off talking about the rest of that right hand side panel. There we go. So we're altitude select flashing now, and it said Alt is the secondary mode now, and now we've got so close to the altitude that Alt is actually flashing and saying that we've actually captured that altitude now. And there we are. We have levelled out at 12,000 feet. Very nice indeed. So while we're in the cruise now, officially I suppose, we can back that down a little bit. So I think to about 31 on the manifold pressure, and about I think 23 on the prop RPM for the purposes of the flight today. We'll get our fuel flows down in the 22s. There we go, and we'll stick our prop sync on as well while we're at it. Okay, so that was a little look at the autopilot. I guess you can see the modes and the enunciation buttons along the thing. It's similar to another autopilot or other autopilots that you may have used. It's got additionally a level button which gets you out of a sticky situation, levels the wings, and puts the nose into a straight level flight attitude. So that's I guess a feature you may not have seen on some older autopilots. That's something that the newer, more digital autopilots have now, with like envelope protection type facilities and functions built into the actual autopilot itself. So things like overspeed as well. If you're overspeeding, it will pitch the nose up. If you're underspeeding, it will pitch the nose down. And it monitors your bank angle and all that sort of stuff. So it's got some sort of envelope protection type features built into it, and it will give you warnings, and then either kick the autopilot in to take control of the aircraft if you go over those limits. And then on to the right of the autopilot is the kind of matching transponder, one of the newer Garmin units. So it's got the normal transponder code entry buttons at the bottom there. Get a little cursor. You can clear back if you make a mistake. Enter a new code if you need to, or you can go VFR. We're in Europe, so it's using 7,000. And then there's some functions. So you see you got your flight ID there. There's an up timer, which you can start counting up, stop it, clear it, There's a down counter, and this is the timer menu now. So again, you can set a time in there and then get it to start counting down. And then there's a flight timer, so we've been flying for 14 minutes there at the moment. And then there's a trip timer, so you can set the trip up to either reset under certain circumstances, or it will carry on incrementing if you're doing a multi-leg type trip. I think I set that up to be a user property from memory. It was a while ago that I did this transponder. So that's the timer functions, and then you got pressure, altitude, and the altitude monitor. So you can set it to monitor the altitude, and it will give you a little alarm to let you know that you're drifting outside of that altitude. Not really needed while we're on autopilot, but it's really handy if you're hand flying. And there you go. You've got static air pressure, air temperature, should I say, and density, altitude. And then you got some lighting functions on the last menu. So that's a nice little transponder. Kind of goes with this this age of avionics, if you like, with the GTNs and the GFC 600 autopilot. So now we've had a look at that, I think that's pretty much most of the, or all of the stuff on the right hand side panel. Let's have a look at the what we've got. You can just have a look out the nose there quickly. You can just see Malta off of the nose there. So what I think we'll do before we get too close, we'll have a quick talk about the left hand side panel and probably begin our descent. So you can see the pressurization. If I talk about that first before we start our descent, just down in the left hand corner here, you can see that the differential pressure is probably almost at its maximum there, because we're not pressurizing, well, very much at all. We've only gone up like literally 2 notches of the pressurization control, which is this item here that I've got highlighted. But you can dial in your target altitude, and you can also set a rate here with this other little knob. Once you begin that climb, you can decide how many feet per minute you want the cabin pressure to change as you're in that climb or descend. And then the gauges to the left of that, one is the oxygen pressure, if you actually are going to don oxygen, if you're outside of the pressurization of the aircraft, which you'd have to be quite high to do that in this particular aircraft. Then you've got the cabin altitude change, or feet per minute, similar to this big boy over here, but for the cabin, this is obviously the outside and this is the internal cabin. So this is what this little dial that's highlighted still at the moment effectively controls the rate of. You'll see that change as we begin our descent in a minute. And then this is the pressurization, or the difference in pressure, and the actual cabin pressure here on this dial here. So just before we go and talk about the rest of the instruments, what we'll do is we'll dial in a new altitude, and we'll come down quite low. It's a bit crude this, but we'll come down to something like 2000, because we've kind of started the approach here, and I'm probably quite a bit behind the ball. So we'll start, we'll try VS. We did indicated airspeed before, didn't we? So just roll in the dial here. You can't see that. Let's get you back up on the autopilot. So we're gonna dial. Well, we'll do quite a big. We'll do 1600 feet per minute, and we're starting our descent. I'm going to back the power off a little bit, bring those props back up, turn that prop sync off now. So you can see we're beginning the descent now. Not really pressurizing too much the aircraft we could have actually gone and dialed in. There's another way of doing this. You can see, look, I don't really want it to climb, so I'm just sort of showing that. But what you can do is you can dial in if you're not going to go above 10,000, which is the minimum on this inside scale. You can dial up the altitude on the outside scale and still get it to pressurize, even though you're at a relatively low altitude, if you want to. But we'll go back to sea level effectively there now, seeing as we're coming back down to land, and you can see that the dial is beginning to show 500 feet per minute now. We probably don't need it to descend that much, but we could, as I was explaining earlier, we could make that rate more if we wanted to. There we go, or a little bit less. We'll set it back to the 500. We can dump the any of the pressurization stuff with the dump switches and these dump levers and valves that you see here. They all work, as does the door light switch, which doubles up. It's like a two-way switch in between the localized switch that's on the door over by the passenger cabin door, and there's a switch in the front here. So you'll see when you turn that on, you get a little warning light, courtesy light on the annunciator panel there. That just tells you that light's on, so if they switch it on from the back, then your warning light will also come on the front here. And then some air conditioning, cooling and whatnot switches. Again, that stuff's all working. I talked about the switch dimmers very quickly when we were looking at the GNS 530 panel, and then the rest of the main bulk in the middle is kind of, I wouldn't say your traditional 6-pack, but I guess it's based around a 6-pack. So you've got your primary flight display, albeit it's probably more of an AI attitude indicator. You've got a slip ball built into the unit there, and there's also a glide slope and localizer, or lateral deviation and vertical deviation, if you want to refer to it as that, on the PFD there, as well as you have on the HSI. So you can see there vertical scale there, and you're going to get your lateral scale there. So we can go ahead and change our course now. I think it was runway 13, wasn't it? We might have to do a loop here to lose some altitude, because I was not paying attention while I was talking, but we'll see. And then to the right hand side of that, you've got the altimeter, digital altimeter there, and your vertical speed, and then below that you've got a rad out where you can set your decision height. We'll set, I think, 300 feet. Again, not really following the proper numbers here, but just for the purposes of showing off the panel. And then on the left hand side we've got the airspeed indicator with the automatic true airspeed, so there's no knob or scale to adjust for temperature here. This has got in the real world, these have a I can't remember what they call it now, but it's a hose connection in the back, so you're getting a reading, or you're getting an input into this airspeed indicator, so it can work out the true airspeed. This disc will rotate independently of the needle and this outside scale here, so you get a true airspeed reading across this. Yeah, we're way too high here, we're over the airport already here, so we're going to have to come back round, which is no drama. And then below that is an RMI, dual needle RMI. You can set that to listen in to the ADF or the nav, or say listen into the needles point to, and you can also get it to slew. That's just a test VOR for the VOR needle, just making sure that is actually working. The DME below that, so selectable for nav 1 or nav 2. And an on-off switch, and then your normal turn and slip indicator to the left of that. A CDI for nav 2 above that, so this is a lovely little CDI. This is it gives you the feature with the buttons here. It says there push to or pull from. So with that feature, if you do a quick click, it gives you a, I think it's a push to, and then a longer push and hold is a pull from. If you were receiving a signal there, this would automatically slew round and give you the correct to or from, depending on which one you selected, to center the needle. So that's really nice. You can get to your, rather than having to spin an OBS dial, which you can still do manually, to get the needle to center, you can just literally push or pull, or a simulated pull, to get the needle to line up there to get you bang on track. So that's a nice little CDI. So we're within 1,000 feet, about 2,000 feet now. So I think we'll just let it carry on doing that while I finish talking about these last couple. And so then the last couple are an OAT gauge at the very top there, just very basic unit, just showing the outside air temperature, and a clock. So a clock that shows time, flight time, or you can set up an elapsed time timer with the up down timer, and you can change the times on this and whatnot, similar to some of the other clocks that I've shown before in terms of its functionality, with the up down timers and the flight timer and whatnot, and being able to set whatever time you want there, whether it be you know, local or whatever. You can set an hour, a minute offset. So yeah, you've got a nice little timer function built into that. So I'm just disabling the autopilot quickly here, just as we're coming down to 2,000 feet, and I'm gonna just swing round and then I could have done this in heading mode, but it gives a chance to have a little hand fly. There we go. We'll get ourselves back round, probably a bit low now, but not to worry. Gives a chance to have a look at the Cessna 414 panels and some of the instrumentation. You can see we've got a nice flight director there on the primary flight display, and you can see that the HSI needle and the heading bug. So we'll stick that autopilot back in on heading mode now for the moment, just till we get back on the other side of the airport. You can see in this 414 it takes no time at all to hop over from Italy to Malta. It's not that far anyway, but it goes pretty fast, this 414, particularly when you climb up to high altitude. We didn't go particularly high today, but it will certainly cruise at well over 200 knots true airspeed. And like I said, I think earlier on in the video, I love the sound of this thing. It gives that real immersive experience. Hopefully those engine sounds weren't, I'm just going to turn them down a little bit now, weren't too loud while I was talking about the panels. But there you go. So let's have a look at where we are now. So we're coming back to the other side of Malta now, or we've sort of overflown it and just coming back round. The airport is just over to our left, around about the 10 o'clock position somewhere. So we'll bring up our panels and our outside view now, and we'll probably stick with that now until we come in for the landing. Just trying to get the other side of the airport now. We could actually so the ILS 13 frequency is 1097. So if we go dial that into, it's in our standby already. That's good. I think that was actually in the flight plan, but we were probably way too high. There's no drama. We can get onto that again, and you can see the autopilot in action, flying the ILS here into Malta. So I think that's just coming over the Valletta now, I believe. That's where it is geographically on the island. So I'm guessing this built up area must be Valletta. I know it's on that northern shore. Okay, let's see if we can get that ILS frequency in. You see it's spun around there on the RMI. You can see our needles are beginning to swing in now. We'll set approach mode. The localizer and the glide slope are in the arm position on the autopilot. Set ourselves a reasonable intercept here. Probably a bit close, actually. Yeah, the glide slope's below us, so we're not going to be able to do it properly. Turned a little bit too soon there. But there you go, the localizer's captured at least. that is a gear warning because I've backed the power down too much for an impromptu landing here. Completely unorthodox. We'll get that gear down. A nice gear lights there, you can see. And listen to that wind noise. Oh, tremendous. Apologies for the landing here. Completely mucked that up because I was too busy talking. Didn't quite allow enough time. It's always difficult to know. Probably about 3 or 4 minutes more needed. But not to worry, we're completely off the plan now, so we can ad hoc all the way. Speed drop too much there. I'm going to make the runway easy. There's the decision height kicking in. Holding it off. There we go, not the best landing, but satisfactory. So there you go, just a muck-about flight as per usual with these panel demos. It's probably more about the panel than the flight itself. We will have to get into some more meaningful flights at some point. But for the purposes of showing off the panel, you get an idea of seeing the instruments and gauges animate there and move around and what they can do, and the autopilot, which is a big feature of this aeroplane. Certainly with the GTNs, it's great. The GNS 530 panel, the autopilot is not as capable. You can still do most of the things. It's a little bit more clunky in terms of its operation. With the pitch mode and the way you have to do it, and there's a separate button to turn the autopilot on, but it will fly an ILS, and it will track a VOR and follow a GPS flight plan. So you can still do the stuff in the 530 version. It's just somewhat more old school, should we say, the autopilot, and it shows with the way that you operate it. But yeah, I love this this GTN 750 or dual GTN 750 variant of the 414 from FlySimware. It is an absolutely great aircraft. Microsoft Flight Sim. One of the best, I would say. It's always difficult to say this one's best, this one's second best and whatnot. It really depends on what you want to do with these aircraft, so it's difficult to compare one with another when they've got different mission profiles. But this one, for your slightly longer haul GA, higher altitude, executive cruiser if you want to call it that. Brilliant machine, absolutely fantastic. There we go. Turn those avionics off while we bring those prop levers back. Let those temperatures and pressures all in the green and stabilised. Shut those engines down. Get that anti-collision light off. Mags crash bar. And the same with the electrical crash bar. I guess we didn't really talk about this switch panel too much, but all the switches are working as they should be, and controlling the respective switches in the sim itself. The volt amp gauge, similar thing, shows the different readings from the different shunts for the alternators and the battery, and the voltage coming from the bus. And so you can control everything you want using these dual panels, completely mouseless, to control the simulated aircraft in the way that we've just done with that short flight, albeit a bit messed up on the approach into Malta there, but that short flight from Italy into Malta. I hope you enjoyed the Cessna 414 panels. I've still got a couple of more panels probably to show after this one. So if you liked it, please click that like button. Be sure to subscribe for those more videos and content just like this. Thanks for watching. See you again soon. Thanks. Bye.